Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Paul.
And this episode we're talking about twin films, which are movies that strangely seem to appear at the same time.
So we do videos every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. GMT time. So go and check out our other films as well in our library. We got many now.
We got a big library, and we're adding to it with twin films, which does not mean films about twins. It's two films that are very similar that come out around the same time. So think Armageddon and Deep Impact.
Yeah.
Which we can come back to in a second, actually, because we want to talk about that. So that's a good example. A really good example that you may not know of is something like everybody remembers Babe the Pig. Oh, I know. Well, there was also Gordy the Pig. The same year, a film about another talking pig came out, practically the same film. Nobody's ever heard of Gordy. So Babe got to live a long life, and Gordy was breakfast. Not so handy.
Was delicious.
And Paul ate Gordy. The funny thing is, people are like, oh, this is a real, recent phenomenon. It's not. It's been going on since the start of movies. And usually when we say the start of movies, we're talking about way back in the good old days of Gone with the Wind, the film that seems to have the top title for everything, most money, most months in a cinema, all that stuff. Well, while they were casting Scarlett O'Hara, another studio was like, you know what, we can get in on this. We can do a very similar film, which they did. They rushed in and made a black and white film called Jezebel. Jezebel went on to win an Oscar. Big success, you would say, except for Gone with the Wind then came out and made all of the money that has ever existed and was literally in the cinema for nearly 40 years.
Yeah, and also some would say that it possibly is the first blockbuster.
Yes.
And if you want to see a video about blockbusters, link in the description.
Over Paul's head. Yeah. He's getting so good at linking back to other videos. I'm actually starting to be frightened by how good he is at marketing. We're going to go through some examples, but we're not just going to do that. We're going to tell you why we think that these twin films exist or why they actually start happening. So what's maybe one of the best reasons that you can think of that these things happen?
The fact is that because Hollywood is kind of a small place and stuff like that you'll have a lot of meetings between studios and production houses and everything like that something's going to get slipped.
Yeah. Hollywood is a very small place, and ideas are not exactly films that we can talk about where an idea might have got spread across the place, but there's nothing really malicious about it. You've got volcano films, because a volcano isn't exactly intellectual property. Nobody's like, oh, I'm the only one that's allowed to have a volcano film. So there was Volcano and Dante's Peak that both came out around the same time. One was Tommy Lee Jones in Volcano. The other was Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton in Dante's Peak. A lot of people forget she was in that film.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I remember from each film is a horrible melty scene.
There's always, if you're going to have a volcano movie, there's going to be a horrible melty scene.
Because you have in Volcano the horrible melty scene where your man saves, they're in the subway and he jumps off the subway, and then the grandmother.
Oh yes,
I think it's the grandmother.
I have less of a good memory of Dante's Peak. Importantly, though, that's a pretty innocuous reason for overlap in films. There are more coincidental reasons. Well, not coincidental, but more real world driven things. Like if an anniversary occurs, so when Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue and did all that stuff 500 years later, two studios made a film about Christopher Columbus because it was the 500th anniversary. Both films tanked and neither film did well. Then you've got things like the Steve Jobs films, which I was about to say the Jobs films, because one is called Jobs, the other is called Steve Jobs. And that was after, obviously, Steve Jobs passed away. Everybody tried to get their script going.
Yeah, well, Jobs was the one with Ashton Kutcher, and the other one was with Michael Fassbender and Seth Rogen.
So you've got things like that. Obviously, then you've got tragedies that can happen. Things like 9/11 had World Trade Center was a film from one angle, and United 93 was a film from another angle of the same terrible event that came out at the same time.
Did World Trade Center had Nicolas Cage in it, didn't it?
It did, I believe, yeah. I actually haven't seen it. I did see United 93 and I thought it was very good back at the time, yeah. The idea of theft has to show up on this, though. And actually, we were discussing how we should broach this because it's very terrible to accuse somebody of theft. So let's just say industrial moving of ideas from one place to another. So somebody left one studio when they were making a animated movie about a bug's life, let's say.
Yeah.
And then, because that was about an army of ants, when they went to their new studio, there was a animated film about ants. So Bugs Life and Ants may have had a connection through a specific gentleman.
This kind of I can't remember the name of the guy, but yeah, he left. There was an idea was ran through about the ants and stuff like that, which became Bugs Life. As you said, he left so much so that it did, and they thought the only reason he was making the film was because he hated the studio he was from, or that he took the idea from. So much so that an executive actually called him up and asked him, did you do this because you hated us? And he supposedly answered yes.
Oh, there you go. Confirmed by the man himself. There's going to be stuff like that. There's also the sometimes studios just want to have a kind of a go at each other. There are two films in 1965. This one you might find hard to believe. Two films in 1965 were released within a month of each other called Harlow. Just Harlow. They were the story of Jean Harlow. Neither of them changed their name. So if you try and find out which one you're looking for in the internet, Harlow as a film name will appear twice. Even Wikipedia has a tough one sorting these two out.
Yeah, because I even asked you, was there even some kind of subtitle to it or anything like that? Like Harlow, and a life or, that kind of thing?
No, this was two studios that were both walking through a door at the same time, and both of them just kept pushing forward and going, no, I'm going first.
Okay.
There was a real fight. And also then you've got, in the more modern times, you've got a lot of people suggesting that Kevin Feige may have heard that DC were doing Batman versus Superman and thought, I wonder if the next Captain America will be Civil War, where it's, I don't know, Captain America versus Iron Man, which at the time would have been their Batman and Superman. So yeah, I think sometimes studios do it to have a little bit of a go at each other. And one of the most interesting reasons why films that are similar come out together is that studios have lots of scripts. They have lots of ideas, lots of properties that they own, and lots of films that they've maybe never put into development. There's a famous kind of quote by one of the development heads that says, you're never going to see a Houdini movie because everybody has a Houdini script in their drawer. All of the major studios have a Houdini script.
Okay.
So if you pull the trigger and you start making yours, all the other studios will try and beat you to it.
Well, do you think, because we're talking about twin films, we're talking about two films that are coming out, do you think if a Houdini film comes out that we could see the perfect storm of 5 studios coming out with the same, as in the ultimate twin movie thing where Paramount comes out with theirs, Universal comes out with theirs, Warner Brothers.
That would be fun. The perfect storm.
6 different.
Well, do you even have 6 different leading people who could play Houdini and get enough people into seats? That would be funny. It would be funny to see just how that would affect the entire industry around it for the whole production period.
Yeah, because that's because then when we're talking about release date stuff, would it be that they all try to do it in the same kind of era, or would they be a year of Houdini films?
I would love it to be on the same weekend. Every theatre, just all of their screens being 6 different Houdini movies.
And then they follow the Harlow thing where they all just quoted Houdini and don't. So you're just I'd like to, that would be really screwed up for the cinema people.
It'd be a bit of crack though. That would be fun. Well, it came close to happening in 87, 88. Where there was a period where the child in a grown-up's body, vice versa type thing happened. And literally one of the films was called Vice Versa, which Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage from the Wonder Years swapped bodies as dad and son. You had 18 Again with George Burns, being an old man in a young body. You had Big, which was Tom Hanks's famous kid in a more grown-up body. So they were all out at the same time. And there was another one in that period. So they're not quite at that Houdini level.
Yeah.
But it has happened where it's been more than even 2. And sometimes though, studios are quite clever because there's the famous story of the Towering Inferno, which 2 studios had optioned books that were about burning skyscrapers essentially. So instead of competing with each other when they heard about it, they joined forces. And that is how you end up getting Steve McQueen and Paul Newman in the same film, when you end up with two productions with leading men going in together.
See, I think that's more of a smarter way of kind of going about it.
It really is. It's a very smart way of going about it, except they found they had some difficulties because Steve McQueen, I think, and his people were demanding that he got equal screen time and the same number of lines. So the writers were quite literally divvying up to the line, saying, okay, we got to give him another because Newman's got 782 lines.
Yeah, okay.
So there can be problems, but I think in general, though, to kind of get back around to it, this doesn't always work out.
No.
Like, there are dangers.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's the whole audience, like, if you do release around the same time, you could split your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, it seems like one film always comes out on top.
Yeah. And if you're the second one out, you can be seen as the knockoff, even if you went into production first. I know a lot of these people, a lot of these studios, a lot of these films get made because they want to share the marketing buzz. So a smaller studio might be like, we can piggyback on some of the marketing. If that big film does well, people will want to see another asteroid film, whatever that might be. Which is why I think we should probably talk about said asteroid film, because I think you had a pretty good take on everybody's prototype for this, or example for this, tends to be Armageddon and Deep Impact. Yeah. They were both just asteroid films.
Yeah, and the reason is because they're actually like slightly different films. Because, like, obviously they're both about asteroids and stuff like that, but taking it from the different perspective, Armageddon is a lot more actiony. It's done by Michael Bay, of course, but Deep Impact was a lot more kind of like, as you were saying, actually more about Earth itself.
Oh yeah, like, one's about the end of the world, and for me that's Deep Impact and how it affects people. The other one is about how you go and kill an asteroid. So they both involve an asteroid.
Yeah.
But one of them's about the planet. The other one's, and its end. The other one is just about, we're going to save this, watch how we do it.
Yeah, because like, even though in Deep Impact you do have the crew, and I believe they call it the Messiah, is the ship.
Mm-hmm.
This is weird knowledge memory that I have.
Yeah, well done.
Because also the other one is called, the other two ships I think are called Liberty and
in Armageddon.
Freedom.
Yeah.
But which goes, so like, they do have the crew and stuff like that, but it is set more towards which goes the planet, because you got Elijah Wood and his whole story about the discovering of the asteroid and how he goes through the family stuff. You got the reporter who first reports on the whole thing, and her, like, so it's a lot more kind of Earth based.
And I'm not saying Deep Impact's the greatest film of all time or anything anything even remotely like that, but I think it gets a lot of harsh press because people enjoyed Armageddon more. But if you look at Deep Impact, it was trying to show different types of love stories and how they'll end because of the end of the world. So there was a father and a daughter, there was estranged people getting back together, there was young love in the Elijah Wood. It actually has a few little layers in there. I'm not saying Armageddon didn't have any. It had one massive one, and it was going to be a rock that was going to be blown up by Bruce Willis and friends, but very different films.
Although Armageddon and Deep Impact are seen as like the example of this, I still say that they're quite different.
So it's not always the case though, and I think we're gonna throw in some honorable mentions. I wanted to get in Capote and Infamous, which are both stories about Truman Capote. And the reason I really wanted to mention it isn't because Infamous was from a big studio and Capote was from a small studio. So Infamous made all the money, Capote not so much. Both fine films. But funny little story that it may be true, maybe not, that the people producing the bigger film got a call from their screenwriter saying, all right, I've turned in the script, I've turned in the screen draft. And they said, no, we've just finished reading it. And they're like, well, you can't, I've only just handed it in. And what they didn't realize is, instead of reading Infamous, which is what they would go on to make, they'd just read the smaller script that had been submitted to them as well, called Capote.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so...
That's a little interesting attitude, but yeah.
If that's true. If it's true, well, but that's what the world says.
Some of the other honorary entries that are, like, there's The Prestige and The Illusionist, which came out around the same time. Illusionist had Ed Norton in it, and The Prestige had Christian Bale and with Coach Hugh Jackman in it. I really like The Illusionist. It also had Paul... He's the secondary character. I'll find out the name. It'll be down here. But yeah, it was just Prestige like wrecked it.
Yeah, but there's the thing. That's tough that's the other way it can go wrong. What happens if you make a good film and you end up going up against one of the great films? Christopher Nolan at his best, I think. Prestige is one of my favorite films of all time, so I'm a little bit biased here, but yeah, it wiped the floor with The Illusionist.
Yeah, and it's very similar, like, very similar storylines and stuff like that. Just Illusionist was about an illusionist, and this was about magicians, kind of rivalry. So,
look, we're going to throw up a list on screen right now. We'll just wait 10 seconds and let some of these scroll right up past you. They're all the films and years, and on that list you'll have seen things like Top Gun, which you've heard of, Iron Eagle, which you may not have, but you should watch because Louis Gossett Jr. and some person who didn't become Tom Cruise. That's rough, isn't it?
That is.
Tom Cruise really took his Top Gun, whereas Iron Eagle didn't do nothing for insert name here because I don't even know his name. You've got K9 and Turner and Hooch. You had a good point about this.
K9 was meant to start off John Belushi's brother's career. What's his?
Jim
Belushi.
Yeah.
James Belushi's career, and it is deemed the flop.
Yeah, even though when we were looking up the numbers on what beat what, K9 actually beat Turner and Hooch in the box office. So they were both cop and dog buddy movies, and everybody remembers Turner and Hooch as the good one, but technically K9 made more money, even though it was viewed as the flop.
Yeah. Turner and Hooch was the one with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Sorry. One of the other ones is the Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down. They're an interesting memory. We discovered that White House Down actually made more money, but Olympus Has Fallen has
the sequels.
Has London Has Fallen, and this year in 2019, I believe, Angel Is Falling, which is the third and final one.
Yeah, so it's not always about making the better film, the more successful film, or literally the higher quality product. Sometimes it's,
timing, luck, a lot of stuff.
And I think one of the ones I'd like to maybe throw in as we end is one of the more important ones, Ed TV, which nobody remembers, and The Truman Show.
Yeah.
Which were both being made about the idea of, Big Brother, all that kind of stuff. So reality TV was starting its ascendancy when this was made. And I think The Truman Show is a fantastic examination of that.
Yeah.
I think Ed TV is a terrible examination of that.
Ed TV was a terrible film. I think it was seen as misogynistic as well because it was about Ed TV and his dating.
Yeah. It wasn't a good examination of the central premise of what it's like to have your life watched.
Yeah, and then The Truman Show just did an excellent job with Jim Carrey.
And The Truman Show is one of the great films of all time again. So I'm going to rapid fire us to the end. I'm going to give you three matchups and I want you to tell me your favourite. So we'll go with the big ones. Armageddon, Deep Impact.
Deep Impact.
Volcano, Dante's Peak.
I'm going to say Volcano.
Red Planet or Mission to Mars. Have you seen both of those?
Oh, I'm going to say Red Planet.
There we go. Because I can't make anybody choose between Bug's Life and Ants, because if they say Ants, I can't do a show with them anymore. You would have chosen Bug's Life, right? Oh, thank God.
I like Ants, but Bug's Life was better.
Yeah, Bug's Life outtakes at the end. First time they did that kind of outtakes after a animated film, and I'm like, this is just perfect.
Ants has Sylvester Stallone in it.
And Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Not likely to be seen on the IMDb page beside each other for anything else. So that's it. Let us know if we missed any of your personal favourites. Were you equally love or equally loathe both films? I know that there's literally hundreds of examples of this, but let us know what you think. Would you like to be first or second if you were releasing your movie? Because there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah. I would also like to know, if you comment down below, what do you think is the key factors for some of the films that we've mentioned? Why did they become the more famous one?
Yeah, good point. And I don't think it's always just leading star power or anything like that.
No, it's like Ed Norton and I think Christopher. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Till next time, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, do everything twice because this is the twin movie episode. And on that note, I've been Patrick. And I've been Paul.
And we've been Heroeside. We'll see you next time.